you were a musician.
I am. I don't play as much as I used to. That's an old hobby. Yeah, I used to play drums quite a bit actually, and for whatever reason, I guess drums kind of took a bit of a backseat, and photography kind of replaced it actually at the same time. That's kind of how it happened actually.
So what did you like about percussion?
Oh, I I don't even know what life would be like without it. Apparently, when I was quite young, very, not even able to walk, I would sit on the floor in the kitchen and beat on pots and pans and stuff. So that the typical story of a baby hitting on pots and pans. But yeah, it started from there and it never ever went away. And every holiday, every Christmas season, I would always ask for drums as a Christmas present as well. So yeah, that never went away. That passion for percussion was always there.
How did you discover your gift for photography?
I got into photography through my work. I owned a real estate franchise for quite a number of years, and it was a real estate franchise. And part of the process involved, some photography. So that's how I ended up owning at the time, a DSLR camera and, a couple of lenses. So I just started using it for work, and then I was like, okay, I have this camera, and then started taking it out and using it for, other things. In the evening, I'd take it and go and I'd say, hey, I'm going to try and see what a landscape is going to look like, or I'd take a portrait of my daughter and see what that would turn out like. But anyways, I kind of muddled around with all of it, but the landscape part of it was the part that instantly grabbed me. So yeah, it didn't take long for the camera and the photography to overwhelm the real estate part of it, and believe it or not, that's how I transitioned into photography and away from the real estate aspect of my life. It's really funny, in hindsight, looking at it and being surrounded by all those places and the things, the wonders, the visual things, the stuff that's so incredible to me now. I just took it for granted back then, to see lighthouses, to see icebergs, to see these seascapes, to see this coastline, to see, the tundra that we have here on in our area. It was second nature to me, I guess. It didn't know any better because it was right there in my backyard. But it wasn't until years later, when I had been away from it and it was no longer a part of my life, that I realized just how incredible it was. And now I look at it and I say, this is such an amazing part of North America, or, even just for the island of Newfoundland, such an amazing part of the island. You've got this unique character, I would describe it. It's not quite like Iceland. It's not quite like Scotland or Ireland. It's not quite like the Faroe Islands, but it's not quite like anywhere else in North America either. So it's this unique landscape that you're not really going to find anywhere else. And to be honest with you, I don't think too many people have seen it yet. And it's one of those last places in North America, at least, that is, I would classify it as really untouched.
You have traveled quite a bit around the island. I noticed that you take your time and give your insight about that place in an almost poetic way. You have a way with words. Are you writing as well?
No, but to be honest, I think that's the photographer in me coming out verbally. My photographic style, I was made aware of a Japanese concept. I believe it's Japanese. I could be wrong. Of Ichigo Ichie, I believe is how it's pronounced, and it's one moment, one meeting is how it loosely translates, I believe. So every moment is unique, and it can never be replicated ever again. And you know, all these landscapes that we go and we photograph, or these sites and scenes that we photograph, the next person behind me can take the exact same composition and he take the exact same shot, but it's not quite the exact same moment. It's not quite the exact same experience, and it's not quite the exact same meaning as it is for me. So, that really is when I found more of a purpose in my photography. I mean, you can get carried away in technical aspects of it, but yeah, to tie back to what you were saying, I just think that's the conveyance of the moment from me as a photographer, using some words to reinforce and reiterate what I'm trying to convey with the image.
Do you have a special place in Newfoundland that you hold very dear, that is very important to you
Outside of the Avalon?
outside of the Avalon?
Oh, yes, there's many. There are many. I'll tell you what. I'll run right around the province actually, and I may skip over, and but the very first one that comes to mind, would be going down the Peninsula. Swift Current areas always stuck with me throughout my life, way long before I was ever a photographer. I remember in my early 20s driving through that area and thinking, wow, this is an impressive area. And I had no idea about landscape photography or anything back then, but it captured me then, and it still does today. And further down, if you keep going, you've got a small fishing community known as Petty Fort in the Placentia Bay side, and that's a remarkable little town because it's so tucked away, and it still has this unique character to it that it's genuine. It's not something that I feel is being amplified or forced or anything. It's just genuine and organic, and it's just that true outport Newfoundland feeling. I get it when I go there. As you go up to, the Bonavista Peninsula, for example, a lot of nice communities in that area as well. Neither one that would really, I would, say sticks out over one or the other, but keep going a little bit further west. And as you go to the Bonavista Bay area, there is a small remote island known as St. Brendan's, and my wife's family is traces back to there actually. So I visited that remote community. You can only get there by ferry. I visited there quite a few times, and again, that's a place where you're going to go and you get that genuine Newfoundland experience where it takes a little effort to get there. So it's genuinely remote. It's genuinely outport. So yeah, when I get to those places and that experience, it never gets old. So that's another place, and of course Fogo Island, although I've only been there once, was quite an experience. Looking at Fogo in hindsight, to me, honestly, it's a place where an artist could go for a minimum of a month, a full summer, a lifetime. There's so much creative opportunity there. But yeah, as a photographer, I could easily go and spend an entire month on that island and just be busy, busy, busy every day. The western part of Newfoundland. I always like to have the salt water as an aspect in my photos. And being there and still having the mountains in the backgrounds is not something that you have an opportunity to photograph much in Newfoundland. We don't have many mountains, but we have lots of salt water. But out there in the Bay of Islands is one of the areas where you're going to get the ocean, the mountains all in sync with each other. Yeah, so you can go up around the Northern Peninsula. Roddington is a beautiful spot up in that area. Of course, down on the south coast. I've never been to Francois and those places. I definitely want to get there. There's I've seen some magical photos from those locations as well, and from my understanding is they would convey the same authentic, remote, organic feeling that I was conveying from, the Petty Fort and those places. But yeah, I still have a few places on my to-do list, but in terms of places that stick with me, those are quite a few. One last one, Greens Pond, up in the New West Valley area. Absolutely beautiful. It's just one of those quaint little towns that just, yeah, it just fits. It fits right. It's everything is just so. The boats and the wharves and the stages, everything is just so. And again, it has that authentic feel. But yeah, those would be the places that pop into my mind.
Is there a time of the day that you prefer?
For photography, yeah, the the general rule in photography is golden hour, which is the hour right before the sun sets in the evening, and in the morning, the hour right after the sun crests over the horizon. You get that warm, soft light flowing through a lot of atmosphere, so it creates those really stunning and glowing atmospheric shots. However, I think as photographers, we shouldn't ever let ourselves be restricted by the conditions, such as the time of day. Uh, I mean, lots of photographers shoot incredible landscapes in direct sunlight. Some of my favorite shots that I've taken have been in the middle of the day, and yeah, so it's all about understanding the light and manipulating the light, and sometimes that harsh midday light can convey a message as well.
Do you choose your locations?
Hmm, that's what, it's not a very active list or anything. It's something that I kind of do mostly spur of the moment. I generally have probably at any given time, probably what I would classify as 2 to 3 projects on the go. And when I say projects, I mean a project could be a location, or it could be an area, or it could be a specific type of shot, or it could be a video type of thing, or it could be a collage of different a subject with lighthouses, for example. It could be like, okay, I want to go and shoot 7 houses over the next 7 weeks, right? That could be a project, for example. So yeah, I don't really have like a stringent protocol or anything for choosing locations. It's a lot of the times is wherever the weather takes me. The weather dependency in Newfoundland is a big thing. Sometimes you might be in one part of the province and the weather is awesome, and then 10 miles away the conditions are extremely poor. So yeah, I always have a couple of projects on the go, but and maybe a couple of places in mind, but no, I don't have a really in-depth list of things that I'm trying to knock off.
Have you ever considered to pictures in the city?
Yeah, and I do from time to time. It doesn't really ignite that fire as much for me. A scattered time I will, I'll go downtown and I'll play around with the colors of houses, or I'll head to the boat basin as a place that I really like, because the longliners and wharves and things like that is not city specific. It's not urban. It's where you can get those elements, but yet it's right there at my doorstep. So yeah, I still like to do that in the city, and I'm really lucky in terms of where I live, because I can be, you know, right in Petty Harbor, for example, in about 10 minutes. So if I want to go and just play around in a little outport anytime, yeah, 10 minutes and I'm there.
Would you be interested in photographing nature when it's the storm?
Oh my, absolutely. Some of the best photos or moments, because a lot of times I'll put up a picture and it has such a meaning to me, and I'm like, this is a great photo, but you don't see the response from it as much because people didn't experience it quite the same way that I did when I was there. So yeah, it's a lot of times when you're out there in the elements and that part of it really that's enjoyable and it's one thing to enjoy the good weather, but to experience the extremes sometimes that yeah, to capture that is special as well. No, to be honest, I'm very basic in terms of the way I shoot. Other than the typical filters to help deal with some of the light issues that you may not want, polarizers or ND filters to slow down the shutter speed, those sorts of things, which are standard tools in most any photography. I use those, but no, nothing extreme. As a matter of fact, I'm going through a bit of a phase right now where my mentality around camera gear is shifting, and I'm like, this whole mirrorless movement is not quite what I thought it was, or what the enjoyment is not quite there camera wise. So I'm kind of looking for more of a retro yet digital experience. So I just picked up a camera, believe it or not, that's over 10 years old, but is well known for its color science. So I'm going to play around with that one for a little while. Purchasing a drone was one of the biggest game changers in my photography for so many reasons. The number one, obviously, is the perspective. Being able to see the world from a bird's eye view just changes everything. You stand up on the ground, you look at a waterfall, for example, and your perspective at ground level is one thing, and then to be able to have a drone that flies up and looks at it from above, that changes the perspective completely. So obviously with composition, the perspective is hugely important, but not only did it change the shots that I was getting with the drone, because the shots that I was able to get, it changed the shots I was able to get with my camera, because I was able to find locations. I was able to see things that I didn't know existed, or see opportunities that I didn't know existed. So I'd go to those places and I'd wait for the light to be right and wait for the moments to happen. And yeah, that's the drone was a big game changer.
Talk about the seasons. Are you favoring summer or other seasons?
It's funny you say that, because lately I've been posting some winter images, and they're all images from years gone by, because except for maybe one or two from a couple of weeks ago, because we haven't really had much snow. But I'm honestly starting to look at my portfolio and I'm like, I really enjoy winter photography. Some of my personal favorite shots of mine are winter photos. And looking back, that was an accident. It didn't happen consciously. I didn't make an effort for it to happen that way. That's just how it unfolded. But yeah, I think the snow probably, in hindsight again, I think the snow probably lends itself to my style. And I tend to have an atmospheric, glowy type of feel to all of my photos. So when you intertwine that with some snowfall, they complement each other.
Talk about shadows and reflections. How do you work with them?
I just treat them as any other elements like I would in a photo. You use them to your advantage. The shadows can be lifted to provide the viewer with more detail, or they can be darkened down to create a mysterious look. A reflection. Sometimes, I've seen photos where a reflection completely blows out an image, but yet it makes the image because the viewer is overwhelmed by the light that's being conveyed, and that's the subject of that image. So, we can try and filter out harsh light and bad light, and light that we don't like, and shadows that are not working for us, and light and glares and reflections that are not working for us. Or you can try and interpret them and try and integrate them into your work as much as possible. There's two ways of kind of working with it.
A lot of the times the artist goes out, takes pictures. He's sure he got the best light, the best angle, but when he gets back in the studio, he realizes that actually they were not that great. Did that happen to you?
All the time. All the time. Any photographer will tell you that 99% of the files never see the light of day. They just don't. You go out and you go to a location, you set up and you take a shot. You tweak it a little bit, you take another shot. And then you wait for the light to shift a little bit, and then you take another shot, and then you wait for it to shift, and another shot, and it just goes on, and you tweak and tweak and tweak. But that's photography. The photo is not the photography. The photography is there with your camera, enjoying the moment, enjoying the light that's shifting and absorbing all that. That's what it's all about. Like I said earlier, that person coming behind you can take the exact same photograph, but they can't experience that moment the way that you're experiencing it.
Talk about the camera. The photographer develops a special bond with the camera. It becomes his significant other. What about your relationship with your camera?
It's funny you say that, because something I alluded to a couple of moments ago about how I kind of feel like the whole mirrorless thing has kind of been overblown, and we kind of jumped the gun there, and how I'm looking to get back to something of more of a organic feel, something, less digital, less cold, a more tactile experience as a photographer. I miss that. For the last 3 years, I've been shooting 100% mirrorless, but in this year, right now, I have 2 DSLRs that I'm going to be using, as well as a mirrorless camera. But I want to get that feel and that experience back into my photography. I feel like that's been missing, and I want to see how it's going to go.
Have you tried taking photographs of wildlife?
I haven't. It's funny. I was looking at lenses this morning, and you bring up that question this afternoon. It's really kind of, I won't say serendipitous, but it's coincidental, because I was just kind of, toying around with the idea of maybe seeing if I could pick up something that was, because the thing about wildlife photography is there's no such thing as inexpensive. It's going to be expensive if I want to go down that road. But if I want to dabble in it, the entry level of a lens, I was kind of looking at it this morning. But yeah, the wildlife, especially in the area that I tend to focus on, the southern Avalon, it's, in my mind, it's almost a shame that I'm not photographing it. And that's kind of what brought that thought to mind as well. I should be integrating that into my work.
You're showing your art in social media. Have you tried to show it in group shows or solo shows?
Yeah, I've done a few exhibits years ago, not so much lately. Some local restaurants have some of my artwork hung on display as well. So yeah, I do a little bit of that, but this day and age, I think most of the exposure most artwork is getting is visually being done digitally, not in person. So it's going to be online, but yeah, so that's where most of anybody's presence is nowadays.
It's the beginning of a new year. What are your plans for this year?
I'm going to rewind to a year ago, actually. because it kind of sets us up to where we are right now. A year ago, my camera was basically nothing but a workhorse. I used it for nothing but work. I wasn't really doing much landscape stuff anymore. Again, it was had kind of gone quiet and gone stale. My passion for it had kind of gone away, and I blamed it a lot of it on this whole AI movement that is happening. But then I realized something, that again, AI cannot replace the moment that I'm experiencing. It cannot replace that photo that I'm capturing, no more than the person behind me can replace what I'm capturing. So that happened last spring, I'd say around May, when I really I don't know what made me think that way. And then my wife and I went on a trip to New York in June. And that really, 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 really changed things for me, because, to spend an entire week sightseeing and taking pictures, and it was all urban, but it was so incredible, and I really was like, okay, this is something I got to just keep pushing here, because this is what I want to do long term. This is where I want to go long term. So I just got to keep pushing to take this one step further next year. So this year I'm looking at doing tours and doing workshops. And right now we're working on a workshop for May in the Trapassi area, and we've got some guests booked, and we've got some room left there for some people. But yeah, it's going to be more of a summit of all things photography. We don't want to just limit it to landscapes or wildlife or anything like that. I got some great photographers coming along with me to instruct about, studio photography, but I do have some great wildlife and landscape guys as well. So yeah, that's my big plan this year, is to take my experiences in those areas and help other people get out and experience it as well.
Would you like to try portraits?
No, I'll be straight up with you. I have absolutely no passion, absolutely no desire to take portraits. And it's funny, because had a good conversation with a fellow photographer a couple of days ago, and we're so different. We were talking about tripods, and I don't know how to use a camera without a tripod. I do, but I don't. I can't remember the last time I did. I just, when I go to shoot anywhere, the first thing that I do is set up the tripod. I take out the camera, put it on the tripod. This is just my style. And so many other photographers take their camera, they walk around, they try and size up what their composition is going to be. I don't do that. I just use my eyes, and I'll walk around and I'll just size things up. And then once I've got the shot in mind, then I take the camera and position it. Yeah, it's just I'm very methodical, I guess, in the way that I shoot, and I take my time, and very, 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 very slow, and I absorb the landscape in the moment. I guess there's not much run and gun to my landscape work.
You've been photographing for quite a while. Do you have unique experience that you would like to share with us?
I'll tell you one real quick little thing that happened that was really interesting. Anybody that's familiar with Newfoundland photography or Newfoundland landscape photography is familiar with the Tickle Cove Sea Arch. Back in 2020, when I had just really jumped into this thing, I was out there and I looked out through the sea arch, and you could see three humpbacks blowing. And I was like, holy moly, what a moment. To just be sitting there on the rocks, and here's this sea arch, and all of a sudden, right there's three whales lined up just at the same time. It's just, I don't know, just a unique experience. Yeah, like you said. So Newfoundland has a lot of that. I want to experience more of it. And those people say, like, how do you get those pictures? Or the answer is pretty obvious. You get to experience those pictures and those moments by being out there and experience a lot of moments that are not like that. You're just sitting there, you're waiting. You just punching the hours and just doing it. There's no there's no replacement for just out there doing it and grinding it and just, you know, if you take enough pictures, you will get some incredible shots. There's no replacement for that.
I saw one photo with fog, and you said you always, say something, a few words. And you said there, I hate fog, but when I saw this fog, I felt relaxed.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, going back to something you touched on earlier, growing up in Trepassey, hate fog. That never went away. I still to this day hate fog. Uh, the Southern Avalon used to be known for its fog. It's not quite so much anymore. I guess that's how I guess our climate has kind of shifted a little bit, but that's a conversation for another day. Yeah, don't really enjoy fog. But at the same time, at the right moment for the right picture, I love it. It's that struggle, we have those things that and our antagonists, the fog, not our enemy, but it can be for a photographer, it can ruin your day. But yet sometimes it can be the element that makes your shot. Yeah, so that's my love-hate relationship with fog.
Is there a photographer that you admire?
There's tons of them. I think everybody is going. If you interviewed anybody that's kind of in my shoes right now, they'd probably tell you Ray Mackey. That's probably the first name that would come to mind for anybody in terms of Newfoundland landscape photography. Ray's been at it for quite some time, taking countless amazing shots. So yeah, I wouldn't say so much anymore because I've kind of explored so many different avenues and gone in so many different tangents myself with my own style. But definitely when I started out, he was definitely a huge influence because I would look to him. And obviously when you see somebody that's taking incredible shots, you're inspired by those people, you're motivated by those people, and you, not that you want to, copy what they're doing, but you see that artistic style and it motivates you and inspires you to do likewise. So yeah, that's the name that's right at the top of the list for me.
So when you go out and take shots, do you take the family with you or do you go on your own for hours?
Both. Yeah. Depends where I'm going. A lot of times, especially in the summer, my wife is a teacher, and so she has summers off for the most part. And we don't have any small kids, so we have a tiny camper, so we tend to float about the island quite a bit, and that's been a big help as well. Having a small camper, we can go just about anywhere. We have our accommodations with us. Yeah, so my wife and our little dog tend to come with me a lot of the times. But yeah, other times I'll go out with other photographers, or by myself. It's a mix of everything.
What what would you recommend to someone who would like to start photography and doesn't know exactly how to start?
What advice would I like to give them?
Yes, for a beginner.
Honestly, just start taking pictures. Stop worrying about gear. Don't worry about cameras. This right here is camera enough. I've taken incredible pictures with my phone. I mentioned my New York trip. a couple of the pictures that I posted were taken with my phone. People can't tell me which ones. Now, if I wanted to print those off, maybe it could be a problem, but in terms of being an artist and in terms of capturing moments and in terms of sharing those moments online, the phone was more than enough. It got the job done. It got the job done in a situation where I couldn't have used my regular camera. Because some of those locations, you can't have big cameras, you can't have tripods. So it's either your phone or something really, really small. So, you either don't get the shot or that's the shot you're going to get. So just get out, take pictures, take more pictures. Don't worry about video. Don't worry about social media. Please, please, please don't worry about social media. The best thing you can do is just take pictures. Go home and look at your pictures. I'll finish with this. Some of the pitfalls, I guess, that photographers can get caught into. And, this follows up on what we were just saying about advice. But yeah, there's a lot of pitfalls. There's a lot of bad advice out there. A lot of people, it's funny enough, you'll be posting this on YouTube, but there's a lot of YouTube content that I wish I could erase that didn't exist because it's just so misleading for people. But that being said, there's so much good content out there as well. You need to know how to establish what is good and what isn't good. So a lot of the free content, unfortunately, is worth exactly that. And, so the best tutorials, may cost you a few dollars, but other than actually being out in the field and investing time in yourself, spending a few dollars on courses and instruction is the next best thing. Don't go wasting your money on $5,000 cameras and $5,000 lenses unless you're going to be a professional who's going to do this and produce enough revenue to justify those expenses. If you want to be an enthusiast who goes out and enjoys photography, you don't need to go to that level. You can get out there and have a capable camera setup for, a fraction of those prices. So if you want to get into photography, do it. Reach out to me if you want some guidance on, what sort of cameras or lenses you should be looking at. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions for anybody. Facebook, Instagram. I'm here on YouTube as well myself. I don't post much, but that's, again, another goal for 2025. It was a goal for 2024 as well and 2023, but YouTube is starting to feel like more and more of a home for me. So I think I will end up settling here at some point. It's just a matter of transitioning away from, the Facebook, Meta, Instagram cycle. Yeah.